The escape pod was very small. Princess Lyrie of the Dominion sat inside it, watching the oxygen counter go down slowly. Outside the tiny window, she could see the broken pieces of her royal ship floating in the darkness of space. She was going to die here, alone far from home. Lyrie was tall like all, with silver skin that glowed softly in the dark. She had 4 arms, each one thin and graceful. Her people were proud. They had conquered 12 star systems. They ruled over billions of beings across the galaxy. And now their third princess was going to die in a broken escape pod because of a simple engine failure. How embarrassing, she thought bitterly. Her distress signal had been sending for 6 hours now. No ships were nearby. The closest rescue fleet was 3 days away. She had maybe 12 hours of oxygen left. Lyrie closed her large violet eyes and tried to accept her fate. She was royalty. She would die with dignity. Then the radio crackled. "Hello, this is cargo ship the Persistence. We received your signal. Do you need help?" The voice spoke in broken galactic common. The accent was strange. Lyrie opened her eyes and checked the scanner. A small ship was approaching. Very small. It looked old and worn. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is, I am a human trader. I saw your signal." Human? Lyrie almost laughed. Humans were a minor species from a small planet called Earth. They had only recently discovered space travel. They were considered weak and unimportant by most galactic powers. The Dominion barely knew they existed. "A human," she said coldly. "What can you possibly do?" "I can bring you onto my ship," the voice replied calmly. "You are running out of air. I can see it from your pod's readings." Lyrie wanted to refuse. The idea of being saved by a human was humiliating, but she also wanted to live. "Very well," she said. "Approach carefully." The small cargo ship moved closer. Lyrie watched through her window as a docking tube extended toward her pod. There was a loud click as the 2 vessels connected. Then the pod door opened. Standing in the doorway was a human male. He was shorter than Lyrie by almost half a meter. His skin was a warm brown color, nothing like her silver glow. He had only 2 arms and his eyes were small and dark. He wore simple work clothes covered in grease stains. He smiled at her. "Hello," he said. "Can you walk or do you need help?" Lyrie tried to stand, but her legs were weak. She had been in the pod for many hours without food or water. Her body was tired. The human stepped forward and offered his hand. Lyrie looked at it. His hands were rough and calloused from hard work, very different from the smooth hands of nobles. She took his hand, helped her up gently. He put one of her 4 arms over his shoulder and slowly guided her through the docking tube and into his ship. The inside of the Persistence was nothing like a vessel. It was cramped and messy. There were boxes of cargo everywhere. The lights were dim and yellow. It smelled like oil and old food. But it had oxygen, sweet, beautiful oxygen. "Sit here," said, guiding her to a worn chair. "I will get you water and food." He disappeared into a small kitchen area. Lyrie looked around the ship with tired eyes. This human lived in this tiny vessel. He traveled through space alone, trading goods between planets. It was such a small, simple life. Returned with a cup of water and a bowl of something warm. The food looked strange, but Lyrie was too hungry to care. She ate slowly while the human watched. "Thank you," she said quietly. The words felt strange in her mouth. Royalty did not thank lesser beings. "You are welcome," replied. "You should rest. My ship is slow. It will take 3 weeks to reach the nearest station." 3 weeks? Lyrie was shocked. A ship could make the same journey in 2 days. "Sorry, old ship, slow engines," smiled apologetically. "But you can have my cabin. It is small but comfortable." "Where will you sleep?" "I will sleep here in the cockpit. I have done it before." Lyrie stared at him. This human was giving up his own bed for her. He had nothing to gain from helping her. He did not know she was a princess. He probably did not even know what a princess was worth. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you save me?" Looked confused by the question. "Because you needed help. That is all. What other reason do I need?" Lyrie did not know how to answer that. In her world, everything had a reason. Every action had a price. Every kindness expected something in return. But this human had risked his ship, his fuel, and his time to save a stranger, and he wanted nothing in return. It was very strange. Over the next 3 weeks, Lyrie recovered slowly. Gave her his food, even when it meant he ate less. He gave her blankets when the ship got cold. He checked on her every few hours to make sure she was okay. And he talked to her. He told her about his life, his work, his home planet. He told her about his daughter, who was 7 years old and lived on Earth with his sister. His wife had died 2 years ago from a sickness. Now he worked hard to send money home for his daughter's future. "She wants to see the stars," said one night, his eyes full of love. "She draws pictures of spaceships all the time. Maybe one day I can show her." Lyrie found herself listening carefully to his stories. His life was so different from hers. He had no power, no wealth, no armies. He was just a simple man trying to take care of his child. But there was something pure about it, something honest. When they finally reached Outpost Gamma 7, Lyrie was almost sad to leave. She stood at the docking port, dressed in borrowed human clothes because her royal robes had been destroyed with her ship. "Thank you," she said again, "for everything." Smiled his warm smile. "Take care of yourself, Lyrie." She had told him her name, but not her title. He did not know he had saved a princess. He thought he had just saved a lost traveler. "I will repay this debt," she said seriously. "I promise you." Shook his head. "There is no debt. I am just glad you are okay." He gave her a small wave and walked back into his ship. Lyrie watched as the Persistence slowly flew away, disappearing into the stars. She stood there for a long time, thinking about the strange human who had asked for nothing and given everything. One day, she told herself, "One day I will find you again, and I will show you what your kindness was truly worth." She did not know it then, but that promise would change the fate of 2 entire species. 5 years passed like water through fingers. Continued his simple life. He flew his old ship between Earth and the outer colonies, carrying food and supplies to small settlements. The work was hard and the pay was small, but it was honest. Every month he sent money home to his sister, who took care of his daughter. Was 12 years old now. She had grown tall for her age, with her mother's kind eyes and her father's stubborn spirit. She loved science and space and stars. Every night she looked up at the sky and dreamed of the universe beyond. "When can I come with you?" she asked whenever came home between trips. "I want to see space. I want to see everything." And every time would shake his head sadly. "Space is dangerous, little star. You are safe here on Earth. I need you to be safe." Would pout, but she understood. Her father loved her more than anything. He was just afraid of losing her like he had lost her mother. One ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed. Was at home enjoying a rare week of rest. He was making breakfast for when his phone started buzzing. Then the television turned on by itself, showing emergency broadcasts. Then the sirens started. Every screen in the city showed the same image, a massive warship in orbit above Earth. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its design was elegant and terrifying, made of silver metal that seemed to glow with inner light. A warship. Panic spread across the planet. News channels screamed about alien invasion. Military forces scrambled to respond. World leaders held emergency meetings. Everyone was asking the same question: why were they here? The Dominion had never cared about Earth. Humans were too weak, too primitive, too unimportant. Why would one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy send a warship to this small, forgotten planet? Watched the news with growing worry. He held close, ready to run if needed. But something felt strange. The warship was not attacking, it was just waiting. Then his doorbell rang. When he opened the door, 4 tall soldiers stood outside. They wore shining armor and carried weapons that could destroy buildings. Behind them was a floating transport vehicle. One soldier asked. His heart was beating fast. "Yes, that is me. You will come with us." It was not a question. Grabbed her father's arm. "No." "It is okay," said, trying to stay calm. He did not want his daughter to be scared. "Stay here with your aunt. I will be back soon." He hoped he was not lying. The soldiers escorted him to the transport vehicle. They flew up through the sky, leaving Earth behind. Watched his planet grow smaller and smaller through the window. He wondered if he would ever see it again. The warship was even bigger up close. Its docking bay could fit 1,000 ships like the Persistence. Felt very small as the soldiers led him through endless hallways of silver and crystal. Finally, they stopped before a large door. The soldiers stepped aside. "Enter," one said. "She is waiting." She walked through the door and found himself in a beautiful room. The walls were covered with stars, projected from some advanced technology. In the center of the room stood a figure he recognized. But she looked different now. Lyrie wore flowing robes of deep purple and silver. Jewels decorated her 4 arms. A crown of crystal sat on her head. Her silver skin glowed brighter than he remembered. She looked powerful and beautiful and terrifying. She looked like a princess. "Hello," she said softly. Bowed his head. "Your Highness." Lyrie walked toward him slowly. "You know who I am now. I heard stories after we parted. A lost princess rescued from space. I wondered if it was you. And you never came forward, never tried to claim a reward." Shrugged. "I did not save you for a reward." Lyrie smiled. It was the same smile he remembered from 5 years ago, warm and genuine despite her royal appearance. "I told you I would repay my debt," she said. "I have spent 5 years preparing." "Preparing for what?" Lyrie pressed a button, and the star display changed. It showed a document with many official seals. "This is a trade agreement," she explained. "It gives Earth a seat at the Galactic Trade Consortium. Your planet will have access to advanced technology, new markets, and protection under law. Your people will go from a minor species to recognized members of galactic society." Stared at the document. He did not fully understand politics, but he understood what this meant. It was a gift worth more than he could imagine. "This is too much," he said. "I just gave you a ride to a station. You gave me your food when you were hungry, your bed when you were tired, your kindness when you wanted nothing in return." Lyrie's voice was serious. "In my world, such things are rare. I have not forgotten." She pressed another button. The display changed again, showing what looked like a job description. "I also have a personal request. I want you to come to my as a cultural liaison. You will represent humanity at my court. You will help build bridges between our peoples." "Me, I am just a cargo trader." "You are the most genuine person I have ever met. That is exactly what I need." Lyrie paused. "Bring your daughter. She will receive the finest education in the Dominion. She will see stars she never dreamed of." His heart jumped. He thought of dreaming every night of space. He thought of her drawings of ships and planets. He thought of all the things he could never give her on his small salary. "Why?" he asked quietly. "You could hire anyone. Why do you want me?" Lyrie was silent for a moment. Then she spoke honestly. "Because in all my years surrounded by nobles and politicians, no one has ever treated me like a person instead of a princess, except you." She looked at him with her violet eyes. "I missed that. I missed talking to someone real." Did not know what to say. He thought about his life on Earth, his old ship, his small apartment, his sister who had her own family to care for. Then he thought about standing in front of a window full of stars, finally living her dream. Okay, he said, we will come. Lyri's face lit up with joy. For a moment, she did not look like a princess at all. She looked like the lost woman he had pulled from an escape pod 5 years ago. Thank you, she said. You will not regret this. 3 days later, and his daughter stood on the bridge of a warship, watching Earth shrink behind them, pressed her hands against the window, her eyes full of wonder. She whispered, "Are we really going to live with aliens?" "Yes, little star." "Are they nice?" Looked across the bridge at Princess Lyri, who was watching them with a small smile. "Some of them are very nice," he said. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, and Earth disappeared in a flash of light. A new chapter of their lives was beginning. None of them knew how much it would change everything. The royal palace was the most beautiful place had ever seen. Crystal towers reached toward purple skies. Gardens floated on platforms of light. Rivers of liquid silver flowed through halls bigger than football stadiums. Everything glowed and sparkled and seemed almost magical. Was 13 years old now, and she had lived in the palace for almost a year, but she still felt like a stranger. They were tall and graceful. They moved like dancers, their forearms flowing smoothly through the air. Their silver skin shimmered in the light. They spoke in musical voices and wore clothes that seemed to be made of starlight. Was short and clumsy. She had only 2 arms. Her skin did not glow. Her voice was rough compared to theirs. She wore simple human clothes because fashion did not fit her body. The noble children at the palace school avoided her. They whispered when she walked past. They laughed at her mistakes when she tried to speak their language. They called her names in words she did not understand. "Little monkey," one boy said loudly during class one day. "Why is it allowed to study with us?" Pretended not to hear. She had learned that fighting back only made things worse, so she kept her head down and focused on her studies. She was good at studying. Human brains worked differently from brains, were better at art and beauty and social skills, but humans were surprisingly good at science and math and languages. Learned quickly, and soon she was one of the top students in her class. This made the bullying worse. "Cheater," the other children whispered. "The human must be cheating." His father noticed that she was sad. He tried to help, but there was not much he could do. He was busy with his work as cultural liaison, attending meetings and writing reports and trying to explain human culture to confused officials. Then Princess Lyri found out what was happening. It was a normal afternoon. Was walking through the palace gardens, looking for a quiet place to read. She turned a corner and found herself surrounded by 5 teenagers. "Look," their leader said, "the little monkey is alone." Backed away, but they blocked her path. Her heart was beating fast. "Please leave me alone," she said in careful language. "It speaks," one of them laughed. "How cute, like a pet trying to be a person." They moved closer, could see their hands glowing with faint light. She knew that could create energy from their skin. They could hurt her very badly if they wanted. "Maybe we should teach it to stay in its place," the leader said. "That is enough." The voice was cold and sharp as ice. The teenagers spun around and immediately fell to their knees. Princess Lyri stood behind them. Her 4 arms were crossed over her chest. Her violet eyes were burning with anger. Her skin was glowing so brightly that it hurt to look at her. "Your Highness," the leader stammered, "we were just—" "You were threatening a child under my protection." Lyri's voice was quiet but terrifying. "A child I personally invited to this palace. A child who represents an entire species that I have worked hard to bring into our society." She stepped forward, and the teenagers scrambled backward. "Listen carefully, because I will say this only once. Is not a pet. She is not a monkey. She is a guest of the royal family. Any insult to her is an insult to me." She looked at each teenager in turn. "Do you want to insult me?" "No, Your Highness," they all said quickly. "Good, now leave, and spread the word to everyone you know. If I hear of anyone mistreating this girl again, I will take it as a personal attack on my honor." The teenagers ran away, so fast they almost tripped over each other. Lyrie watched them go, then turned too. Her expression softened immediately. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Nodded, but her eyes were wet with tears she had been holding back. "Thank you, Your Highness." "Please call me Lyrie, or—" she hesitated. "In Korean, there is a word for an older sister figure, yes." Looked up surprised. "How do you know that word?" "Your father taught me. He talks about Korean culture often." Lyrie smiled softly. "You can call me if you want, when we are alone." Something warm bloomed in his chest. She had not had a mother for many years. Her aunt was kind but distant. And now this alien princess, this powerful being from another world, was offering to be her older sister. "Okay," whispered. Lyrie's whole face lit up with joy. From that day forward, everything changed. The bullying stopped almost completely. The other children were too afraid of Lyrie's anger to say anything bad about. Some of them even started being nice to her, hopping to get closer to the princess. But more importantly, Lyrie became a real part of life. She visited the family quarters almost every day. She said it was for diplomatic discussions with, but mostly she just wanted to spend time with them. She ate dinner with them, tried human food, she loved kimchi but hated cheese, and listened to talk about her studies. She helped with her homework. She taught her how to move more gracefully in society. She gave her advice about dealing with difficult people. "Some are cruel because they are afraid," Lyrie explained one evening. "They see humans growing smarter and more skilled, and they worry about losing their power. The best revenge is to keep succeeding." Nodded seriously. "I will be the best student in the school." "I believe you will." Watched these moments with quiet happiness. He was glad his daughter had found a friend. He was glad she was finally smiling again. He tried not to think about how happy he was when Lyrie visited. He tried not to notice how her eyes seemed to sparkle when she laughed at his jokes. He tried not to feel anything when their hands accidentally touched. She was a princess, he was nobody. But sometimes, late at night, he let himself wonder what it would be like if things were different. Years passed, grew from a scared child into a confident young woman. At 15, she could speak 3 languages fluently. At 16, she won the school science competition, beating every student. At 17, she was one of the most respected young people at the palace. And through it all, Lyrie was there, teaching her, protecting her, loving her like the sister she never had. Was not blind. She saw how her father looked at Lyrie. She saw how Lyrie found excuses to visit every day. She saw 2 people who clearly loved each other but were too afraid to admit it. Adults were so stupid sometimes. One night asked her father directly, "Do you love Lyrie?" Almost choked on his tea. "What? Why would you ask that?" "Because you smile like an idiot every time she walks into the room." "It is true," she crossed her arms. "And she does the same thing. You two are so obvious. Everyone in the palace knows except you two." Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was sad. "Even if I did have feelings for her, it would not matter. She is a princess. I am a cargo trader. We live in different worlds." "You live in the same palace," pointed out. "You know what I mean." Sighed. "I think you are wrong. I think love is more important than titles." Smiled and put a hand on her head. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from watching 2 foolish adults avoid their feelings for years." Laughed, but he did not argue. Deep down, he knew his daughter was right. He just did not know what to do about it. But did. She was her father's daughter, stubborn and determined. If these 2 adults would not fix their own lives, she would fix it for them. She just needed the right moment. And soon that moment would come. The relationship between and Lyrie grew slowly, like a flower reaching toward sunlight. It started with conversations. Late at night, when the palace was quiet, they would sit together and talk for hours. Told her about Earth, about Korea, about the simple joys of human life. Lyrie told him about history, about the weight of being royalty, about the loneliness of power. "Everyone wants something from me," she admitted one night. "Every noble, every official, every suitor. They see my title, not me." "I see you," said quietly. Lyrie looked at him with soft eyes. "I know. That is why I treasure our time together." Their friendship deepened into something more, though neither of them spoke about it. They shared meals. They walked through the palace gardens together. They laughed at private jokes that no one else understood. When Lyrie was stressed about politics, she came to for comfort. When missed Earth and felt homesick, Lyrie sat with him and listened. They became each other's refuge. But they never crossed the line, never held hands too long, never said the words that hung in the air between them. They both knew it was impossible. A princess and a human traitor. The scandal would be enormous. The political consequences would be severe. Their love could cause problems between two species. So they kept their feelings hidden, even from themselves. But saw everything. At 17, she had become skilled at reading people. She watched her father's eyes follow Lyrie across every room. She watched Lyrie create ridiculous excuses to visit their quarters 3 or 4 times a day. She watched them dance around each other with the careful steps of people terrified of breaking something precious. It drove her crazy. "Just kiss already," she muttered to herself one evening, watching them sit on opposite ends of a couch when they clearly wanted to sit closer. She decided to take action. The opportunity came at a formal dinner hosted by Lord, a minor noble who loved to gossip. Many important people would attend. Whatever happened, there would spread across the palace within hours. Dressed carefully in her finest style robes, she had learned to wear them gracefully over the years. Tonight, she looked almost like a young noblewoman herself. The dinner hall was magnificent, filled with crystal chandeliers and floating flowers. Hundreds of sat at long tables, eating delicate foods and discussing politics, and sat at a table near the back, as befitting their unofficial status. Lyrie sat at the high table with other royals, but she kept glancing their way. Lord was working the room, greeting guests and collecting gossip like a collector gathering gems. Eventually, he stopped at its table. "Ah, the famous human liaison," he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "And his daughter, the brilliant student, how wonderful." "Thank you, Lord," said politely. Lord turned too. His smile became sharper. "It must be difficult for you, child, growing up in a strange land, no mother to guide you, an incomplete family." It was an insult disguised as concern. Everyone at the table knew it, could feel her father tensing beside her. But just smiled sweetly. "Thank you for your concern, my lord, but my family is quite complete." "Oh, how so?" This was the moment. His heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice calm. "I have my father, of course, and I have my stepmother, Princess Lyrie. She takes very good care of me." The words fell like bombs. Lord's eyes went wide. Nearby conversation stopped. People turned to stare. At the high table, Lyrie suddenly choked on her wine and started coughing. "The princess is your stepmother," Lord repeated, his voice rising. "Well, they are not officially married yet," continued innocently. "But it is only a matter of time. They are quite in love, even if they are too shy to admit it. Very human of them, really." Hissed, his face turning red. But it was too late. The words were out, and Lord's eyes were gleaming with the joy of a man who had just heard the greatest gossip of his life. "The princess and the human traitor," he said loudly enough for half the room to hear. "How fascinating." Within minutes, the entire dinner hall was buzzing with whispers. People pulled out communication devices to send messages. The news spread like fire through dry grass. Princess Lyrie finally stopped coughing and looked at with a mix of horror and amazement. had his face in his hands, making a sound somewhere between a groan and a laugh. He said weakly, "What have you done?" "What someone needed to do years ago," she replied cheerfully. The scandal exploded overnight. By morning, every noble family in the capital had heard the story. By afternoon, it had reached the outer provinces. By evening, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. A princess of the Dominion in love with a human. It was unprecedented, impossible, exciting, terrifying. Some were angry. "The royal bloodline must remain pure," they shouted. "Humans are inferior beings." Others were curious. What is so special about this human, they wondered. What does the princess see in him? A few were quietly supportive. "Love is love," they whispered. "Perhaps it is time for change." Lyrie was called into emergency meetings with her advisors. They begged her to deny the rumor, to claim it was a misunderstanding, to distance herself from the human family. "The Queen will hear of this," one advisor warned. "Your mother will be furious." Lyrie sat quietly through all their panic. When they finally stopped talking, she spoke. "I will not deny it." The advisors gasped. "Your Highness, you cannot be serious." "I have never been more serious." Lyrie stood up, her silver skin glowing with emotion. "For years, I have hidden my feelings because I was afraid. But a 17-year-old human girl just showed more courage in one moment than I have shown in my entire life." She walked toward the door. "Where are you going, Your Highness?" "To speak with, we have much to discuss." She found him in his quarters, sitting with. When she entered, they both stood up, looked nervous, looked proud of herself. "That was a very dangerous thing you did," Lyrie said too. Bowed her head. "I am sorry if I caused trouble." "Do not apologize," Lyrie's voice softened. "You spoke the truth. You were braver than I have ever been." She turned too. He looked at her with those same kind eyes she had loved for years. "The Queen will summon us soon," Lyrie said. "My mother is not a gentle woman. She will be angry. She may try to separate us. She may try to send you back to Earth." "I understand," said quietly. "But before we face her, I need to know something." Lyrie stepped closer to him. "All these years, I was too afraid to ask. I was afraid you only saw me as a princess or as a friend. I was afraid that if I told you how I felt, you would leave." She took a deep breath. "Do you love me not as a princess, not as a friend, as a woman, as a partner, as a wife?" The room was silent, held her breath. Looked at Lyrie for a long moment. Then he smiled, the same warm smile he had given her in that rescue pod so many years ago. "I have loved you since the moment you took my hand and let me help you," he said. "I was just too scared to say it. I thought I was not good enough for you." Lyrie laughed, tears forming in her violet eyes. "You foolish human, you have always been more than good enough." She reached out with two of her 4 hands. He took them in his. "Then let us face my mother together," she said. "No matter what happens, we will face it as partners." Quietly slipped out of the room to give them privacy. As she closed the door behind her, she heard her father say something that made Lyrie laugh and cry at the same time. Finally thought with a satisfied smile, took them long enough. 1 week later, the royal summons arrived. Queen of the Dominion demanded an immediate audience with the human called. The moment of truth had come. The throne room of Queen was built to make visitors feel small. Giant pillars of crystal reached toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of nobles lined the walls, their bodies glowing faintly in the dim light. Armed guards stood at every entrance. The air itself felt heavy with power. And at the far end of the enormous room, sitting on a throne carved from a single piece of stellar diamond, was Queen herself. She was terrifying. Queen was tall even by standards. Her silver skin blazed with light, brighter than anyone else in the room. Her 4 arms rested on the arms of her throne like weapons waiting to be used. Her eyes were cold violet ice, and they were fixed on the small human walking toward her. Felt his legs shaking, but he kept walking. Step by step, he crossed the endless floor of the throne room. He could feel thousands of eyes watching him. He could hear whispers spreading through the crowd like waves on a shore. Lyrie had been forbidden from accompanying him, had been locked in her quarters. He was completely alone. When he finally reached the base of the throne's platform, he stopped. Then he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He bowed, not a bow with 4 arms spread wide. A human bow, deep and respectful, with his hands at his sides. The whispers grew louder. Some nobles laughed at this strange human gesture. Others looked curious. Queen did not react at all. She simply stared at him with those cold eyes. Then she spoke, and her voice shook the entire chamber. "Why does my daughter call you spouse human?" The words hit like physical force. He had to stop himself from stepping backward, but he raised his head and met the Queen's eyes. "Your Majesty," he said calmly, "your daughter has never called me spouse." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Do you call me a liar?" "No, Your Majesty, but the truth is important," kept his voice steady. "It was my daughter who used that word. She is 17 years old and apparently tired of watching 2 adults avoid their feelings. She spoke without permission." A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. No one talked to the Queen like this. No one corrected her, and certainly no one blamed their own child for causing a royal scandal. "You dare speak to me with such casual honesty?" The Queen's voice was dangerous. "I have nothing else to offer, Your Majesty. I am a cargo trader from a small planet. I have no political power. I have no military strength. I have no wealth by your standards. The only things I have are my daughter and my honesty." He kept his eyes on the Queen. "You asked why your daughter calls me spouse. The truth is, she has not, but she might want to someday, and the truth is also that I love her." The crowd gasped. More whispers erupted. Guards shifted nervously. "Love?" The Queen's voice dripped with disgust. "You think love gives you the right to my bloodline? You think your feelings entitle you to my daughter?" "No, Your Majesty. Love entitles me to nothing." His voice remained calm. "But it does give me the courage to stand here and face you honestly, instead of running away or making excuses." The Queen stared at him. For a long moment, no one in the room breathed. Then the doors of the throne room burst open. Princess Lyrie strode through, her silver skin blazing with light so bright that people had to shield their eyes. She had broken her confinement. She had her mother's direct orders, and she did not care. "Mother," she said, her voice strong and clear, "if you punish him, you punish me." "Lyrie," the Queen's voice cracked with anger, "I told you to stay away." "I know." Lyrie walked down the endless floor toward the throne, her robes flowing behind her like waves. "I am choosing to disobey." She stopped beside and did something that sent shockwaves through the assembled court. She took his hand, in public, in front of everyone. A princess of the Dominion, holding hands with a human. "You would defy me for this creature?" the Queen demanded. "This creature pulled me from the void when no one else came," Lyrie replied. "This creature gave me his food when he was hungry and his bed when he was tired. This creature raised a daughter who became the first human ever respected in our court." Her voice grew stronger. "This creature taught me that true strength is not about conquering others. It is about choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier. It is about standing for what you believe even when you are afraid." She lifted her chin and met her mother's eyes. I have conquered worlds. But he conquered me, not with force but with patience, not with power but with love. That is something our empire has forgotten how to do." The throne room was completely silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to breathe. Queen slowly rose from her throne. She was even more terrifying standing up. She walked down the platform steps, her movements smooth and predatory. She stopped directly in front of. She towered over him by a full meter. Her 4 arms could crush him as easily as breaking a stick. "Human," she said quietly, "you stand before me knowing I could destroy you with a word. Why?" Looked up at her. He thought about his daughter locked in her room, probably worried sick about him. He thought about Lyrie standing beside him, risking everything for their love. He thought about his wife, who had died too young, who had always told him to be brave. He smiled, the same warm smile he had given Lyrie so many years ago. "Because some things are worth standing for, Your Majesty." The Queen studied his face for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. Then she turned to her daughter. "He is stubborn," she said. "Yes, mother. Foolishly brave. Very much so. He will cause problems. Many, I expect." The Queen was silent. The entire room waited, could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then something extraordinary happened. Queen laughed. It was a small sound, quiet and rusty, as if she had not laughed in a very long time, but it was unmistakably a laugh. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "the humans are not as insignificant as we believed." She turned back to. Her eyes were still cold, but there was something else in them now, something like curiosity, maybe even respect. "I do not approve of this," she said clearly. "My daughter could have any prince or noble in the galaxy. Instead, she chooses a cargo trader from a forgotten planet." She paused. "But I have learned something today. I have learned that the man my daughter loves is not a coward. He does not run. He does not lie. He stands before the most powerful being he has ever met and tells her the truth." She extended one of her 4 hands toward him. "You have 1 year, human. 1 year as a formal suitor to my daughter under the observation of my court. You will be tested. You will be challenged. Many will try to break you." Her eyes hardened. "If you fail, you will be exiled from this world forever. You will never see my daughter again." She waited. Did not hesitate, he took her hand. "And if I succeed?" he asked. For the first time, a tiny smile appeared on the Queen's face. "Then I will call you family." The room erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted, advisors protested, guards looked confused, but none of it mattered. Lyrie threw her arms around and held him tight. Tears of joy streamed down her silver face. "1 year," she whispered. "We can do this." "Together," he agreed. Far away, in a locked room in the palace, received a message on her communication device. It was from Princess Lyrie. "Your father survived. The Queen gave us 1 year. Thank you for being braver than both of us." Smiled and wiped away tears. She did not know she had been crying. 1 year later, the wedding of Princess Lyrie and became the most watched event in galactic history. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched as a human cargo trader married a princess, walked down the aisle scattering glowing flowers, crying happy tears the entire way. Queen presided over the ceremony, her expression stern but her eyes soft. When kissed Lyrie at the end, the crowd cheered so loudly it could be heard in orbit. Humanity, once considered weak and unimportant, found itself forever connected to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Not through war, not through politics, but through love. Years later, when historians asked what made humans special, Queen, now grandmother to half-human children she adored, gave a simple answer. "They know how to love without conquering, and somehow that conquered us all." And in a small frame on his desk, kept a picture from that first day. A human cargo trader and a lost princess, standing in the doorway of a cramped ship called the Persistence. The beginning of everything.